Welcome to the YouTube channel Awakening with Applewang. I am your host, Applewang. The goal of this channel is to investigate spiritual phenomena such as near-death experiences, deathbed visions, past life memories, and other spiritual communications, as well as alien and UFO encounters, as to demonstrate the immortality of our souls. My intention is to bring you humanity, healing, wisdom, and answers through sharing some of the profound spiritual investigations and individual encountering experiences, thereby facilitating unconditional love and spiritual as well as universal consciousness. For more information, please visit my website www.soulregressionhypnosis.com. To book a free strategy call, please scan the code below or check out the link at the description box. Welcome, beautiful souls. This is episode 3. Today, my special guest is Shephered Hoodwin. Shephered Hoodwin is a Laguna Niguel, California channel who specializes in the micro teachings, how we set up our lifetimes. Shephered has been channeling Michael since 1986. Shephered also does intuitive readings, mediumship, past life regression, counseling, healing, and channeling coaching. Shephered has been conducting workshops on the micro teachings throughout the United States and Europe. Shephered is also the author of Journey of Our Souls. A channel explores the micro teaching, the hilarious Enlightenment for Nitwits, the Complete Guide, and the 13 other books. Thank you so much for coming to my show again, Shephered. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
It's wonderful to be with you.
Last time we learned so much about the micro teaching. Today I have some more questions for you.
Great.
My first question is, what does a typical session look like? Do you just do the reading, explaining, or do you do some healing as well?
I do a lot of different sessions. For example, I do past life therapy, in which I regress people to remember their past lives and do healing work with that. I do channeling coaching, where I work with people who are learning how to channel to help them over their obstacles. The main thing I do, though, is something I call intuitive readings, in which I connect with my guides, my essence, your essence, and I use my truth sense to share with you what spirit wants you to know and whatever is in your highest good. So normally for those people write out their questions ahead of time. They email me photos of people they want to ask about, which makes it easier to tune into them. And they're relaxed, they're casual, they're conversational, but there's always healing energy work in all of my sessions.
Wonderful. And the photos can be anyone that the clients wanted to know about certain things in relation to this person?
Yes. Right. Yes. And people often do. They want to know about what's going on with this family member or with this person I'm dating. What are the issues? So we look to go deeper into the relationship and see what some of the factors are that illuminating them could be liberating.
I see. In terms of this relationship reading that you do you find that our current relationship, do they have any relationship with their past life or energetic imprint?
Yeah, they usually do. Especially if you're an older soul and you've already had a lot of lifetimes. chances are, if you connect deeply and pretty quickly with someone you've met, you've had past lives with that person, although they may look very different. So your current lover might have been someone who was a parent or best friend in an earlier lifetime, but there will be often a continuation of themes in that relationship. And another thing that we do in sessions too is if you had your Michael chart channeled and you had, let's say, your partner's Michael chart channeled, then I can refer to the two charts and talk about how the soul factors on the charts interact with each other.
Beautiful. Do this reading by knowing their past and also their chart correlations with their partners and family members. Do they provide some sort of a healing?
Yeah, normally people say things like that it gave them a great sense of relief and understanding, and they feel so much better going back into the relationship, that they have better tools for dealing with it, that they just understand better.
Beautiful. Would this sort of information be helpful in terms of healing physical ailments, diseases, stuff like that?
Yes, it can. Physical health issues can have any number of causes, and often it's more than one cause. The fact that we live in these fragile human bodies on a very difficult physical plane means that a lot of things can go wrong. We have genetic factors, we have environmental factors such as pollution, if we've had accidents, if we've been exposed to viruses. So sometimes health factors are purely physical. Sometimes they're a combination of physical and emotional. Sometimes they're karmic because of past life issues that are being brought up for us. So we don't want to jump to any conclusions that, if you're sick, you have an unresolved emotional issue. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And you really need to go into a deeper state of consciousness to figure out what's actually going on. We don't want to assume anything. This is not just true of health situations, but any situation you can think of, there can be a number of causes. And people do tend to jump to conclusions about what is behind that situation. And sometimes the truth is actually very surprising.
Through this sort of intuitive readings, do you also provide insight in terms of talent and career choices?
Yes, and your Michael chart also will give you some guidance as to what your natural strengths and weaknesses are. But talents also do develop over many lifetimes. So let's say your soul type, what we call the role, is sage. I'm a sage. And sages have a natural affinity for music. But there are sages who aren't particularly musically talented in this lifetime, or even in many lifetimes. And there are people of all the other roles who do have musical talent. So, in addition to your natural propensities, there's also the question of how much time and energy have you devoted in past lives and earlier in this life to developing that talent. So, let's say in a recent past life, you studied piano and you were very passionate about it. You practiced many hours a day. You're going to be born into this lifetime demonstrating more talent because you can access the developmental steps that you went through in past lives. Now, you may need to review some things because you're not born with all the conscious knowledge that you may have developed through years of studying piano in this case. But the you might say the pathways in your brain and your consciousness that you developed through all of that musical expression will still be there, and they're relatively easy to access, especially after you have reviewed some of the same musical knowledge, like how to read notes and such.
When you say that they develop this talent over lifetimes do the soul actually choose this talent? How was that being distributed or developed?
Well, this has a lot to do with what the soul is interested in any given lifetime. So let's say you were Mozart in your last lifetime, incredibly talented, both in uh, playing and composing music. But let's say on a soul level, you were saying, that was great, but I want to develop in some other directions. So you may come into your next lifetime with no interest in music. And people might even be shocked that you were one of the greatest composers of all time in a past life, because you're not pulling that talent out of your deep subconscious into this lifetime. Maybe instead you thought, wouldn't it be fun to be an athlete? Or maybe I need to develop my interpersonal relationship skills better and I'll become a therapist. And it just doesn't call to you to be a musician. So you're not going to do the same things in every lifetime. On the other hand, you could just as easily say, I still have things I want to explore musically. And maybe this time I want to be an orchestral conductor, or maybe this time I want to play in a rock band. So it can go in a lot of different directions, and it comes down to the key Michael teaching's idea of choice, that the soul chooses what it wants to explore. It's rather like you go to a college, except it's a self-directed curriculum. By that, I mean that there are some colleges where you don't have to follow a certain course load, but you can choose what you want to study. And that's how it is for the soul on the physical plane of earth. There may be some recommendations. There may be, okay, well, we as your guides think that you would do really well to do some work in this area. We recommend this, A, B, and C, but it's your choice, just how you pursue that and what you want to learn about. So we follow our interests.
When you say the soul has choice, does that mean the soul has complete free choice? Or the physical human has free choices?
Yes, so choice is the underlying principle of human existence. So, yes, first of all, we as souls, which is really what we are at a core level, we are the eternal soul. We chose these parents, this body, the basic circumstances of this life. But then, as a personality, once we're born and we're Apple or Shepherd or whoever we identify as in this lifetime, we are making choices all the time, big choices, little choices, but all of these choices give us an opportunity to learn how to create our own reality. So you might say that we're gods in training. And so everything we say, choosing to go left or right, choosing what we eat, they all have repercussions. They all result in things. And then as we take stock of what they resulted in, then we can take the bull by the horn, so to speak, and say, okay, I created this result by this choice. Maybe I chose this person to be in a relationship, and this is what resulted from it. Is this really what I want to be creating? And you say, well, no, that didn't turn out so well. Why did I make that choice? I'll make another choice. Now, do we choose absolutely everything? No, of course not, because other people are choosing things and they affect us, and our governments are choosing things and that affects us. And for example, we have climate change because of the collective choices of humanity down through the last several hundred years. And those affect us. But we are the primary creators of our reality, meaning that our choices are the most important factor in how our lives look and feel to us. And if bad things do happen to us that are beyond our control, like let's say we ended up in a place that unexpectedly had a war and we're caught in the middle of it and it was too sudden to get out, sometimes that was our soul choice, but sometimes it wasn't. But how we handle that, the choices we make about that situation that we did not choose, still gives us a lot of opportunity to grow, because every situation challenges us to make a choice. And that challenges us to think, to observe, to be creative, inventive, to research. And every time we deliberately make the best choice we can make, we grow. So no experience is wasted.
Fascinating. If there is collective choices, are there also collective some sort of a soul decision making?
Yes, there is. So the souls who have been coming in as human beings for a long time have made some collective choices about what this human experiment would look like. So we have made some collective choices, for example, about human lifespan. If you read the early books of the Bible, it talks about people living hundreds and thousands of years. And people think, oh, well, that was a myth. But then the New Age community will talk about Atlantis and Lemuria. And it appears that that actually did occur, that many millennia ago, people did live longer lifespans. And so collectively, we as souls got together and observed that people tended to be complacent. They thought, I'm living for a couple thousand of years, and I'm not really in any big hurry to grow. So there was a collective choice to shorten human lifespans so that it would have the illusion of time running out, and it would put more pressure on us to grow. So, you know, here you're, say you're 20 or 30 and you see people aging pretty fast, and you think there really isn't that much time. I need to make the most of the time that I have, and therefore you will grow more quickly. Now, it is an illusion because we're actually eternal beings, but it's not an illusion that the body ages pretty fast the way things are now. So we have chosen to put the pressure on ourselves to be more alert and to take advantage of our growth opportunities.
Fascinating. That's something that I did not know.
I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Now, please allow me to share a little bit about myself. As a professional working in the field of helping people, I have an advanced diploma in clinical hypnotherapy and psychotherapy. I'm also specifically trained in past life regression, quantum healing hypnosis technique, and the life between life therapy. With this profound technique that I have learned, I have been helping many of my clients, particularly in the area of relationship healing and pain management. Hypnotherapy is a rapid transformational technology using the hypnotic arts and sciences that is designed with the purpose to create positive changes and therapeutic effects. This safe and natural process normally begins with deep relaxation, often involves guided imagery and suggestions. Through identifying the root cause of a challenge, it helps to break old, destructive, and even harmful patterns and habits. Thus, facilitates subconscious relearning. The hypnotic state is a spontaneous process that happens in our lives all the time. Some are concerned about losing control or being manipulated. Such myths and misconceptions are due to the lack of proper understanding about this natural process. To learn more about hypnotherapy and what I do, please visit my website. You're also very welcome to book a free initial strategy call with me. Scan the code or check out the booking link at the show notes. Thank you.
So talking about the human experiment, does that mean human life term in this form, in this human body, would come to an end one day?
Well, I think everything comes to an end eventually. When the souls that have chosen to incarnate on Earth no longer find the human life form interesting, then populations will start to drop, and maybe the human experiment will come to an end. Could also happen because humans destroy so much of the surface of planet Earth through pollution and so forth that humans can't survive. And if that happens, then the souls who were in the middle of a grand cycle of growth experiences may have to finish up in a similar life form on another planet. So that could happen also. So I don't know, we don't know what is going to happen, but I don't think if you go to any planet in the universe that has hosted intelligent sentient life like the human form is doing here on Earth, I don't think you'll ever see that lasting forever. I think everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and at a certain point it will have outlived its usefulness.
I see. When you talked about the human lifespan, the collective intelligence or consciousness has shortened the lifespan. Does that mean we reincarnate faster?
Right. Well, sure. If people are living thousands of years, it just wouldn't be practical to have babies at the same rate of speed that we have them now, because then pretty soon we'd have 100 billion human beings here. So longer lifespans means fewer births, spread farther apart, and yeah, it would change everything. Absolutely.
Interesting. And my next question is, do you think that people who are connected to the universe at a spiritual level is generally seems to be happier and easier to obtain inner peace? Is there any correlation over there?
I do believe that in general that is the case. In fact, that's really the whole reason that one would undertake a spiritual personal growth path, because it's going to give us consciousness and tools to be happier, to be more harmonious with who we really are, to live more authentically. That said, there's a difference between being a spiritual student and genuinely being on a spiritual path. By that, I mean that there are people who read all the books and they can talk about these fascinating subjects quite articulately, but they aren't necessarily doing the work themselves to grow, to let go of their fears, to deal with their blind spots, to become more harmonious. On the other hand, there are people who could not talk about any of these subjects. They don't have the vocabulary, they don't have the conceptual base that you and I do, and yet they have found harmony with the whole. They are loving, good, kind, caring people. They understand the truth, and they don't feel compelled to read the books and to take the workshops and to use the techniques. They just naturally do it. So the proof, there's a saying that the proof is in the pudding. In other words, are you living a love-based life? Are you radiating your light into the world? If so, you are effectively on a spiritual path, no matter what you call that. And there are people who are very high quality people who are following a religious path. And they get their you might say, their dogma or their understandings from their religion. So you can take two people who believe the same religion, and one of them is evil and one of them is extremely good. It's because of the individual choices. It's how the individual interprets those teachings and chooses to live those teachings. So no matter what the religion is, if you are choosing love, then you are on your spiritual path. And if you are choosing fear, hate, control of other people, and so forth, then you cannot be said to be on a true spiritual path.
That's beautifully explained, the difference between spirituality and religion. When you mentioned that the soul has come to the reincarnation, I'm interested to know if the soul actually split energy, reincarnate two lives at the same time.
Yes, that is quite possible. The soul is vast. The soul is capable of what would be mind-blowing to our conscious personalities. And so right now we have 8 billion human bodies walking around planet Earth, but we don't actually have 8 billion souls assigned to these human bodies. We have under 2 billion. And so most souls who are incarnating today are living in more than one human body. There are two ways that the soul can make that happen. One is, let's say, I finished my last lifetime in 2004, and I'm back home on the astral plane, and I'm ready for my next lifetime, and I can bend time and have my next lifetime be in 1957. And it overlaps with the lifetime that I just finished. The other way that I, as a soul, can do that is I can send out parts of myself into several bodies all at the same time. But from the soul's point of view, it sees lifetimes consecutively, even if they're all in the same time frame. So in other words, let's go back to the example of Mozart. So Mozart's next lifetime, if there's another musical lifetime, then that will build on the Mozart lifetime. On the other hand, if there's a lifetime that is going in a different direction with a whole different set of lessons to it, then the soul may, you might say, start another string, and that has its own progression. But generally speaking, from the soul's point of view, lifetime 232 follows lifetime 231, even if the time frames are simultaneous.
How fascinating. Are the purpose behind this purely for soul growth, for learning?
That's a big part of it. The soul is curious. The soul craves experiences. Basically, the soul ultimately is a part of the Tao, or the all that is. And the all that is doesn't want to stay the same, because that would be boring. So the all that is, the Tao, the source, wants to expand itself. It wants to explore new corners of love, truth, and beauty. And so every lifetime is an opportunity to create new things, to grow, to evolve, to have new experiences that it expands the Tao's understanding of what it is.
You mentioned the soul expanding. Well, we have 8 billion population now, but we didn't have this 200 years ago. Does that mean that the soul is expanding at a faster speed?
Well, more lifetimes does, yes, it does accelerate our growth. There's more intensity now. But what we're really saying by that is that there's more of it compressed into a single time frame. The soul is still growing at whatever rate that it chooses. But because we have so many human bodies and there's so much intensity, I mean, life in 2023 is very intense for all of us. So within this time frame, things are accelerated.
Now, in terms of this development, there are still a large population, they aren't very spiritual. In my professional area journey, I can see some sort of resistance. What would you have to say to those people who are resisting to the spiritual reality?
Those who undertake a conscious spiritual path, in other words, they meditate, they pray, they read, they study, they ask questions, they think, they review their lives, they journal, they try to make more loving choices. So that's what we would call a conscious spiritual path. When you choose a conscious spiritual path, which really very few people do, it accelerates our growth because it gives us tools to handle the challenges of life more skillfully. And so we move through the lessons more quickly, more effectively, and so forth. So that's terrific when people want to do that. Most people are not growing that way, but they're still having experiences. They're still making choices, so they're still growing. And Michael teaches us that it's all good. So, if you go through from your first to your last lifetime and never consciously seek, you've still had a lot of experiences and it's all good. It's all worthwhile. You have grown because you have lived life and you've been challenged and you've had to try to figure things out. You've had to rise to challenges. So you have grown. And so that's fine. But again, if somebody really embraces the spiritual path, it will be happier. A lot of the lessons that people have are through the school of hard knocks, meaning that people grow a lot through painful experiences. They don't make cautious, deliberate, wise, well-considered choices. They blunder into life. They act according to their unhealed subconscious. That gives them experiences, but it's the hard way. When you are on a conscious spiritual path and you make more reasoned, careful, loving choices, you will tend to have less pain and more joy.
Does this have anything to do with soul age?
It can. So we talked about in the earlier interview something the Michael teachings call soul age, meaning that when a soul is new to a planet such as Earth and a life form such as the human form, it is a first level infant soul, and it goes through these stages of development. You might say a changing perspective. And so the lessons for a soul who's new to a planet are pretty basic. They're just like, how do I survive here? And then as the soul moves along, it has lessons about, okay, how do I work within a societal structure? Like, how do we form towns and cities, and how do we get along with each other? And then how do I be successful in the outer world? So when you're in these earlier stages, you have your hands full with the outer world. You may come to a spiritual path very early on. Maybe you became a Buddhist monk very early on, and that gave you some tools that most people don't have. And that can be quite useful and beautiful for you. But generally speaking, most people in these earlier soul ages are not going to be looking for that kind of growth because they're just dealing with the world. So once you feel like, okay, I got it. I understand how the world works. I know how to be successful. I know how to handle money. I know how to get along with people, basically. Then the more advanced lessons, such as what we call the spiritual lessons, become more interesting. So the older the soul, the more the tendency is to seek spiritually. But again, there are many, many people who go through the whole physical plane and never seek. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just their choice.
This guidance be useful to corporate the business world?
Yes, in fact, I know people who are taking some of these concepts into the corporate world, and many people are finding it quite useful. They might be simplified for that environment where you're dealing with people who don't have a background in this, but all of the New Age spiritual precepts that we can find so enriching as spiritual students can be translated for the general public and also be useful for them.
In particular, in this higher management position hiring, if they look at this energetic compatibility level, do they also generate benefit from it as well?
Well, theoretically, let's say you were in the personnel department, or you were a manager, or you were head of a small company and you were hiring people. Theoretically, you might want to get Michael Charge channeled on some of your prospective hires to get a feeling for how these may work together. But really, the most important thing that you would want to look at with any possible hires is something that you would get more through your intuition, which is this a really good person? Is this a person who knows how to engage in critical thinking? Is this someone who tries to be kind, decent, respectful of other people? Are they original thinkers? Are they creative? That you couldn't really get entirely from their Michael chart, just as you couldn't really get that from their astrological chart, although both of those charts could provide some useful information. The best decisions come from using your intuition, and that's going to be true in any area of life. Yes, the Michael charts, the astrological charts, all of these things can be aids, but they don't replace your ability to simply observe who someone is and your feeling about that.
When you mention intuition, do everybody has that intuition?
Everyone has the capability, but if you don't practice it, then it tends to go dormant.
What sort of practice would you recommend?
Well, just paying attention to it. You have a feeling like, oh, something's not quite right here. And then you talk yourself out of it. You say, oh, that's silly. It's fine. So if you keep letting your mind overrule what you know at a deep gut level, then you're going to separate yourself further and further from your intuition. And it's sort of like the tool becomes rusty. On the other hand, if you think, oh, this is interesting, I'm feeling something about this, I should really be alert here, I should tread carefully, what's really going on here? Okay, inner self, what can you tell me? You just start using the intuition, it's going to become a stronger skill. And it's really a way not only for your own truth sense to speak, but also for your guides and your essence to speak to your personality.
I hear some people, or many of them that are my clients, they have this trouble to listen to their intuition. What does that tell you?
Well, in many societies today, people think the intellect is the only thing worth listening to. But the intellect, which is really valuable, there's nothing bad to say about using your head, but all by itself, cut off from emotions, cut off from sensations, cut off from spiritual sensing, all by itself, it can lead you astray. So something can look logical on paper, but it's using a faulty premise, and so it leads you in the wrong direction. So the intellect needs to be married to emotions, sensations, spiritual guidance, they all need to work together as a team. And when that happens, then you can make really good choices. But in our world, where people are cut off from their feelings, cut off from their emotions, cut off from their sensations, cut off from their intuition, cut off from their own higher self, they're going to make a lot of bad decisions.
I see. So it's very important to practice and connecting to the inner wisdom.
I think so. I think it's the most important thing there is for a human being. On the other hand, if you live a whole lifetime cut off from your intuition and you make a lot of terrible mistakes, you've learned a lot of lessons about what not to do. And maybe next time you'll learn to listen to your intuition.
Absolutely true.
No experience is wasted. So whatever someone is doing, let's say you look back on your own life and you say, oh my God, I've screwed up so much. According to the Michael teachings, it's all good. So just review how you screwed up, learn the lessons from that, and just try to do better now. That's all any of us can do. And if we really learn lessons from our mistakes, then we take that forward into the future, and that's gold. That's gold. All of your mistakes, if you've learned from them, it can become your greatest strength. I can tell you a story from my own life right now that I got myself involved in a situation several years ago because of my inability to say no. Wanting to be the nice guy too much, and basically saying yes is more often a good thing than not, but everything has to be in balance. And I didn't follow my intuition. I didn't say no when I should have, and I got involved in a situation that's turned out to be very hard to get out of, and it's cost me a lot. So I'm thinking, oh my God, I learned this lesson so well. I will never make that mistake again because the results of my bad choices are so deeply imprinted on me. So it's not a wasted experience. If I had been able to make better choices years ago that landed me in that bad situation, I would have. I just didn't have the skill. But maybe now I do, because I made those mistakes and I learned from them.
I see.
This program is produced by Zentopia Healing and the Soul Regression Hypnosis, with a mission to help individuals to awaken from their daily mundane lives. If you enjoy the show, your considerate donation is graciously welcomed. Please scan the code below for donation or check out the link at the show note. Like it, subscribe it, and please share it with your friends. You're also very welcome to leave a review. All of your support is sincerely appreciated. And here's my website, www.soulregressionhypnosis.com. You can also find Soul Regression Hypnosis on Facebook and Instagram. Scan the code below to book a free initial strategy call, or check out the link at the show notes. Thank you for watching.
Please continue watching the rest of the video. Speaking of these soul lessons, did we or did the soul actually choose what to learn in this lifetime or in a lifetime?
We definitely come in with some planning about things that we want to improve on, but then life also throws us some surprises that give us other things to work on. So basically, everything that happens that we don't handle well is an opportunity to learn. Everything that upsets us is an opportunity to grow, to become more peaceful, more accepting of what is. There is not a single thing in any life that cannot be used for the soul's growth. So again, it's all good.
And the work that you do and I do, I wonder if these people doing spiritual work or healing work, are they chosen people, or what's the mechanism behind it?
We choose ourselves. We choose what we're interested in. If we want to do this work, then we choose to do it. Now, let's say I'm planning my lifetime and I choose to be a channel. Then before I incarnate, I may go to my friends, the Michael entity, and say, I'd like to channel you. And they say, great, let's make a plan. But they don't tap you on the shoulder and say, oh, Shephered, you are the chosen one. You are the exalted one. We want you to channel us. I mean, they may say, yeah, you were making progress with this channeling thing a few lifetimes ago. Would you like to pick that up? But it's not like anybody is chosen because they're special. It's because they chose. They said, yeah, I think I'd like to do that. And you may not be that great at whatever it is that you chose, but if you practice, you get better at it, like with anything else.
I see. So it's a soul choice, and then we reincarnate, we practice.
Yes. People who start out being really good at something probably did it in other lives.
That makes sense. Now, some of the people who are out there trying to capture evidences of immortal souls or the spiritual activities, some of them aren't advanced enough. Do you see or sense that humankind would eventually develop a very advanced technology that can capture soul evidence?
Even a few decades ago, there were people trying to get audio recordings of people on the other side speaking through certain instruments. I don't think there's a lot of money being put into that kind of research. And when people are talking about, well, science hasn't proved A, B, or C, they keep forgetting that science goes where the money is. And so a lot of scientific research happens because, like, some rich corporation wanted that research to be done. So I don't know how much is being invested in this kind of research, but I don't see any reason why there can't be more proof that would appease a scientific type of mind. It's just a matter of investing in that kind of research. For me, I don't need that kind of proof because I have the proof in my own experience, but I can see where other people might really like that kind of thing.
I see. So when we come back to talk about your work, when you channel, what sort of thing is happening within your body? Do you sense energy? Do you see pictures, images? How does the information being downloaded by your body?
Everyone's experience of channeling is different, and the agreements are different, and the techniques and the infrastructures are different. I feel a very strong and distinct energy coming from the Michael entity. It's very intense. People who are in my physical presence see lights around me. They feel tingling in their body. My face may change. Sometimes the energy is so intense that it looks like the negative of a photograph. In the days of film photographs, if you saw the negative, everything was sort of like inside out. Sometimes people will see that. It's very, very intense for me. Some people channel much more gently. They just bring in a little bit of that energy, enough to get the words, which is no doubt going to be a lot easier on their body. Michael will choose words through me, but sometimes if they're having trouble finding the words, I'll get pictures and I'll think, okay, is this the word you want? Is that the word you want? And then if I come up with the right one, then it's instantly out my mouth. And also in intuitive work, which is not the same thing as directly channeling Michael. It's more like a psychic reading, which is mostly what I'm doing these days, except for Michael charts and a few other things. In intuitive work, I get a lot of images that I then have to translate into words. I have to figure out what spirit is trying to show me. And then I'll put it more into my own words, but sometimes they'll feed me specific words too.
I see. When this intense energy coming into your body, does that have any negative impacts in your health?
It does. A lot of psychics and channels will tell you that since they started doing the work, they have more trouble sleeping. They may have started developing neurological issues. There is a tendency to have health problems. And the simple reason is that the human body is not designed to be running that rapidly vibrating energy. So yeah, there can be a price to be paid for that. It depends on how rapid an energy that you're channeling, and in other words, how high a plane you're channeling from. Depends on how much you do it. Most people who do this kind of work really need to take long breaks from it to replenish themselves, take vacations from it, and so forth. But a lot of jobs have health hazards. So, like if you're typing all the time, you can get carpal tunnel. If you teach school to young children, you can get all the colds and flus that are going around because the kids bring them to school with them. There are hazards to just about anything you might do in life. The professional dancers and athletes often ruin their joints or whatever. So there's a price to be paid for many things that one might do, and there certainly can be for people who do deep channeling or intuitive work.
And that says when you channel, or the more you channel, the energy within the body is changing. Is that a way that you can reverse or finding way to balance the energy to stay on a healthy track for yourself?
Channeling particularly the way I channel the Michael entity from the causal plane, which is definitely not natural to the human body, it does change the body. My body will never go back to what it was before, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's really actually a cool thing. But yes, there are certainly tweaks that one can do to minimize the negative impacts of this work. Being grounded, super important. By grounded, I mean connecting to Mother Earth, connecting to nature, being in your body, feeling your body connected to the earth. And there are specific exercises one can do to improve one's grounding, which often does not come easily to spiritual type people. So that's really helpful. Getting enough sleep, eating properly, getting enough exercise, spending time in nature, that's all very helpful. Just not doing it too much, taking breaks, super important. Living a balanced life, getting your needs met, having good relationships, a good support system. So yes, there's just a lot of things that can help with that. If it is your soul's plan to do this kind of work, then very often your body is already wired a little differently from birth on. And you're also probably going to find other people who can help you minimize the negative consequences of it.
And doing all these activities could also help from some sort of other different sort of energy, let's say negative entities, stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of people are so afraid of negative entities. I have just not had a problem with that. But I think that if you're coming from unconditional love, there are certain things you can do in your intentions and the way that you create your energy field to make sure that what's coming through are only souls with a positive intention.
I see. So what is the difference between channeling and mediumship?
Well, a lot of the words that we might talk about in spiritual or new age circles have different definitions depending on who you ask. My definition is that mediumship is specifically a kind of channeling where you connect with deceased loved ones, meaning if I'm a medium and you come to me for a session, I bring forth a message from your parents, from your dead husband, or anyone that you loved that was recently human. That's what I would call mediumship, and I would call channeling a higher level of that, where you work with higher teachers and guides, and their purpose is not to comfort the bereaved, but their purpose is to be spiritual teachers. However, there are people who will call microchanneling mediumship. So it just depends on who you're talking to, what their definition is.
I see. And you also do training as well. With last bit of a minutes that we still have, would you like to share a little bit about the training work that you do, teaching?
Yes, so generally I work with people who are already having some success channeling. There are a number of good books and websites and such that can help you do exercises that will open the door to your channeling. So there are a lot of people who are already practicing it, but they're not confident. And so they come to me and I have them practice channeling with me, and I go into that place with them and I coach them. I make suggestions to them. I explain what's happening. I tell them what I'm getting, and they just gain the confidence to do it more on their own.
And then you run the training online?
Yeah, over the phone or over Zoom or whatever people want to do. Mostly I've been doing those one-on-one. There's no reason why I couldn't do it in a small group workshop also.
That's beautiful. We are perhaps coming to a very good time now, and the audience definitely are interested in finding you. What are the best ways to find your books?
My website is simply my name, shepherdhoodwin.com, and I'll spell that shepherdhoodwin.com. If you click the tab for books, you'll see the books I've written. If you click the tab for events, you'll see the workshops I'm doing. So, for example, on Sunday, I'm doing a workshop called Beyond the Michael Chart, where it's Q&As about the Michael teachings besides the chart material. And then a week from Saturday, I'm starting a series called Journey of Your Soul, which is also the name of my book on the Michael teachings, where we do a deep dive into your Michael charts and what it all means. And also, if you go to any page on my website, you can sign up for my Perspectives newsletter, and it will have announcements about everything that I'm doing. And that goes out about 3 or 4 times a year.
Beautiful. And your books are all listed on your website?
They are on the books tab. They're all available either in Kindle form as an ebook or in paperback form.
And can they also find your books on Amazon and other channels as well?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, if you go to my website and you see my books page, it will link to where you can get them on Amazon.
And they can also book sessions, healings, intuitive readings with you through your website?
Absolutely. And they can order their Michael chart through my website. There's an order form.
That's perhaps all for us today. I've learned so much, and thank you for sharing your spiritual knowledge. It feels like I'm speaking to a spiritual Wikipedia, like everything that I have can be
I may use that spiritualpedia or something. I like it.
Yeah, Wikipedia, you go there. It has everything written, being explained, and every person, whoever has information, they can update. So you just like an, spiritual Wikipedia.
Thank you.
So the audience, some of them is going to contact you and finding their answers through your teaching and sharing.
Thanks so much for having me, Apple.
It's a pleasure and honor. And once again, we appreciate your time. To the audience, thank you for watching. Like it, subscribe it, comment on it, and share it with your friends. We shall see you in the next video.